Hello, Helen.
Hi, Rob. I see this is called Finding Nemo or Finding Sources.
Just keep swimming, swimming, swimming.
Very necessary. But remember, we're looking at assessment this term because we are in term 4 and this is coming up. I'm sure you're all starting to think about it already.
Definitely.
While you're swimming upstream. We need to look at assessment and trying, as we all know, to avoid those inevitable rote recall memory questions which take up so much of our papers.
And also the kids end up being stressed because they've got to try and memorize stuff and then they don't read the question properly and they just vomit whatever's in their head onto the page.
In a panic, because exams are a big panic.
Exactly.
So in a source like this, we would be providing them with the information, and more so, they have to read it, assimilate it, understand it, and then apply the knowledge to the question that we've asked.
Exactly. And hopefully be excited by what they're looking at or hearing or whatever it is that the source is.
And so what we're really looking at is the quality of the source has got to be absolutely tip-top.
Okay.
So what makes a good source?
So it must be relevant to the questions or the tasks. Often we get a question where there's a picture of a tornado, and then the questions and I've got nothing really to do with anything in the picture.
It's a rote learning from the tornado.
But it's got a pretty picture with it.
Therefore, our next 2 points, the material must be rich and quality, and it must have some depth to it.
Yes.
It can't just be 5 lines and then you ask one question from it.
No.
I think that when you're looking at source-based work, it must have at least 5 or 6 marks of interpretation from your source.
Exactly.
Your source must be meaty.
Yes, totally.
And rich.
Because otherwise you end up with a paper that's got like 10 different sources on it for 30 marks, and it's actually crazy.
And that's taxing the children even more.
And then the variety of sources, that's not just a magazine article or a newspaper.
A comprehension.
Yes.
Comprehension, copy of the English. So we're wanting maps and charts and comic strips and posters. Adverts they use a lot in the high school for English, but we can bring that into natural studies and social studies. What do you mean by personal accounts?
So I was thinking about either interviews, diary entries.
Awesome for history, diary entries.
And also geography, where you've lived through a volcanic eruption or whatever, a personal account.
First-hand account of that.
Yes.
Oh, that would be lovely.
Videos are amazing.
Definitely, and we can do them live or not live. We can print out the questions, or you can merely show them the video.
Yeah. And then the last one?
Oh, well, that's a big one. And actually, we want to spend more time on telling you how to set a practical question within an exam where they're locked in their seats. And there are certainly ways, and we are going to pull out some of the examples that Coach in the Class have used.
And I like the idea of that because it actually sort of includes a lot more of the types of learners that you have in your classroom.
Practical intelligence is one of the 3 that Sternberg pushes.
Cool.
So here we have a very common question. Offer the children lots of data and they've got to sift through the data to perhaps create the graph this time.
I love this skills-based question.
Totally. So they've got to decide what's going to be their y-axis, what's their x-axis, which is longer. Are they working in portrait landscape? Which needs more? And then mostly clever calibration where if you look at these here, the changes are so small that you could even go up in 0.5 to make your graph more spread out. But if these were different, you'd have to maybe leap in 10s or 20s.
Exactly. And actually, that's an amazing skill to develop is to it's a practical thing, actually, to look and see.
It's important that teachers don't tell you what the calibration is. You've got to work it out, which is skills-based.
And then also to see if you need to do a pie graph, a bar graph, or a line graph. What's the right kind of graph for this situation?
Obviously, you would have allowed the children to practice this in the classroom time so that they know how to apply it in the test.
Totally.
Okay. And then the other way around, where you are given the graph and you've asked to interpret information, which month was the driest, in which month does the most precipitation fall, and obviously you've got to work out what information is on the x and the y-axis, and then you're able to interpret the graph.
And you could even ask questions like climate type of questions, like is this a summer or winter rainfall area? How would you know that? What if the rainfall in the middle months was much lower? How would that affect? You could really start sort of thinking around this,
and not only sort of direct questions, but thoughtful questions.
Yeah, those higher order thinking questions.
Definitely, yes. This is one where we're comparing and evaluating. And so the first question is, which advert is more effective? Now, of course, it could be either.
Yes.
But what happens is why. So your reasoning has to be good. And there must be a good reason why there. And then stretching the question, what water-saving idea is each advert promoting? And give 2 more water-saving ideas.
So again, although that is a bit of a knowledge-based thing, it's still very open to, I mean, that's a practical thing. You've got to be saving water in the real world. What things are you doing?
So we've literally taken that thinking and turned it into more evaluate and compare, which is great. And then, of course, in most test papers are printed in black and white. You wouldn't get these huge pictures.
No.
So you could project them on the screen. You could print out 2 or 3 colorful ones and pin them around the classroom just to motivate the children to get a better view, because these are awesome pictures. You don't want to lose the value of the picture.
No, exactly. And then this again, it's looking at that water cycle thing that we've done a lot of times. And depending on your grade, you might want to provide them with a word bank so that they're not trying to, grade 4s, this might be a bit difficult for them to try and remember these big words. So you're giving them the words, they still have to understand what do they mean and where do they fit into this.
And there's still lots of other labels that need to be applied here, like, hot air risers and the cool air sinks. And we could actually maybe even add extra marks here that you can score bonus marks if you have a little bit more information.
Yeah, and also this thing of having to describe it in your own words
is very important.
Yeah.
So, and that helps cement that whole process and story.
Love this comic strip.
So this is from one of our grade 6 medicine lesson for this term. And this comic has been provided. The children, in fact, are going to create their own one.
Yeah.
And in this picture, you'll see Alexander Fleming is saying, oh, I'm so happy I'm going on holiday and I'm tidying up my lab and I'm throwing these Petri dishes into the bin. However, there's one lurking over here.
It's like the lunchbox at the bottom of the bag.
Totally. And he misses it and it happens to be near an open window. And so the question is, what was accidental about Fleming's discovery? Well, the answer is here, is that he noticed that bacteria, one of the samples had been infected by a mold spore. But obviously, if you stretch the marks, this is maybe 2 marks, and then you can stretch the question to ask 2 more about how that mold spore then killed the bacteria and
and actually, we're not asking them to memorize stuff. They must be familiar with it. Obviously, they've been in class, they've listened to the lesson, they've been involved in something, and now you're giving them something to work from. They don't have to memorize this thing. And I also, looking at this, I thought down the bottom there, the 3 little gents, looking at why is collaboration so important?
Because previously we only focused on Alexander Fleming, but the truth is these 3 guys at Oxford University were critical to the whole rollout of penicillin. And then again, if we pop to this question here, where they say that penicillin saved many lives in World War II, you could ask, give examples. How do you think? And now they have to apply the fact that this penicillin would have helped them heal quicker, the whole thing about cleaner surgeries, and that if they had their leg blown off. And so it would be open to interpretation here. That's all, Rob. That's all. It's not kind. So
getting
just
messy.
using this comic strip, you can see how we could have pulled it apart and got at least 10 marks out of it.
And what's amazing is the kids would love this this material to work with.
It's not words.
It's not just what was accidental about Fleming's discovery. Now you've got to try and remember who's Fleming and what did he find and blah.
Totally, yeah. And it's also giving you information, reminding you, oh yes, he's that oak who was at St. Mary's Hospital in England.
Totally.
He's the British guy. And
exactly.
So it's also giving information, learning while we're there.
And now we're going to go into such cool territory.
Well, movies. We love movies. So you could allow the children to watch a movie and then present them with a piece of paper with questions on in a ZTech space, and they'd answer those questions from the movie as is part of the test. How awesome is that?
Love it.
Or if you have devices, you could use PlayPosit and Edpuzzle, where you would go into it. So, for example, in our lesson here in inventing vaccines, lesson 3 of 8 in history, there's a link here that you would click on to PlayPosit. And if you go to our PlayPosit, you would play this video, and this is how it works. You're going to have to answer this question. Have you ever heard of smallpox before today? Many children haven't, because it's been eradicated. So you can say yes or no. This is not for marking. It's merely a data question. Submit your answer. And now we begin the movie.
10,000 years ago, a deadly virus arose in northeastern Africa. The virus spread through the air, attacking the skin cells, bone marrow, spleen, and lymph nodes of its victims. The unlucky infected developed fevers, vomiting, and rashes. 30% of infected people died during the second week of infection. Survivors bore scars and scabs for the rest of their lives. Smallpox had arrived.
And awesomely, you better have been listening to this and not looking out the window at the girls on the phys ed field. Where did this disease originate? And now you would choose, was it Europe? Was it North Africa? Was it Central Africa? Was it Asia? You choose whichever one you want. You submit your answer and it tells you, I was actually correct, and I continue with the movie, which we're certainly not going to do now. But that is, and then obviously that can be marked online for you, which is so awesome.
Yeah.
But again, as we said, if you don't have it, you could do that little ABC thing, and then kids could color in ABC as they were working, which would make it as easy. And how cool is that? A whole movie as your source.
I love it. Fantastic. Very engaging.
And then finally, why would we use Wakelet?
So I discovered Wakelet fairly recently. I love Pinterest, but Wakelet is like Pinterest on steroids. I just find it more organized and more sort of user friendly. And what we've done here is we know that it takes ages for us to go and find sources of things. So we've actually created this Wakelet board, and we will share the link with you. If you're on our YouTube channel, it's in the description. If you're on Facebook, we'll put it as a comment. You can go and click onto this, and you can also add to these sources. So these are places we look for sources. On the far left-hand side, the magazines, those are hard copy magazines. You can find them often in Pick n Pay and Checkers.
We buy this one quite often.
It's got amazing articles in it that are child-friendly. That's often the hard thing to find, is something that's child-friendly. And then websites where you can go and find articles and other excerpts and things that you can use as sources.
Like Kids Britannica and Kiddle, which are great.
Crash Course is a fabulous series of
What's
videos.
his name again?
I can't think what his name is. But they do history and science.
Yes.
And I think they're busy doing some geography stuff now as well. PBS, amazing for a whole load of different, a variety of places.
We've used this quite a bit in our solar stuff.
Yeah. Images, if you want to go and look for some images, we use Pixabay just because it's free, but there are lots of image places. And then if you scroll across to the right, you can see, this is amazing, especially for older children, is that there are archives where you can get original sources of material, source material.
Look at that one, South African History Archive.
And this is fabulous, especially if you're teaching grade 6 or 7 and you're looking for some good, authentic sources. It's amazing.
So this would be a global Wakelet for teachers to find sources.
Yeah.
But at my school, I'm pretending I'm a grade 7 teacher. And at the moment we're doing extension into the frontier. I might create a Wakelet on that where I can store information, share it with the English teacher who might use it as a comprehension.
Yeah. So you can store anything on your Wakelet board, basically.
And then share it with with the other teachers in my grade.
And you can share it with another school. Maybe you want to work with another school.
That would be nice.
So both history teachers are busy putting information, sources in there, and then you can choose what you use.
Wouldn't it be cool if one day Coach in the class could make all sorts of Wakelets on like grade 6 medicine, and everyone could collaborate on that one? Or grade 6 NST, the solar system.
Yeah.
That's another idea for the future.
When we've cloned ourselves another time. So, we hope you found some inspiration to go find sources and how to use them.
I'm quite excited about to use the movie one because I've actually never used it in a formal test assessment.
Yeah.
And why not? I mean, but you see, I then am into continuous assessment where it's just lots. And obviously I use it in my continuous assessment. Yes. But as a final exam, I think that's quite a nice thing.
It's fabulous. And you know what else I saw at a school now recently, which I absolutely love, was your assessment had different parts to it, looking at different subject areas. So there was a lot more subject integration across a theme. I loved that. I thought that was so clever. So you could use that graph as a maths assessment and a science assessment.
Awesome.
know,
Yes.
I love that.
Yes,
That's just
yes.
fabulous. So your sources could be sort of
Shared.
multidisciplinary.
Yes, shared, integrated, which is where we're
Fabulous.
going. Yeah.
Yes.